Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town.
Mike Freeman.
What's happening, Tyler Gould?
Greg Spears. I mean, what a fun night. We both know Greg, you a little bit better than I do, and you brought him on the show, invited him on the show, and you know, I was willing to let you know that if it was good, I'd give you credit. If it was bad, you're taking the credit, and it was good. So talk to me about what you enjoyed with Greg.
Well, Greg takes us to places we haven't gone before. I know that we've gotten emotional in previous episodes, but I actually get the Kleenex out in this one. Right. And I'm 45. Right. And we're joking about we're just saps and we cry at a whim nowadays. But he really does share some powerful things. Great teacher, great life. He's doing some great things in Arkansas of all places. And I loved catching up with him. That's when I know I've got a good friend. When you haven't seen a guy in a decade. Right. Yeah. I mean, you can kind of see into his life a little bit through technology these days, but I haven't had a sit-down conversation with Greg Spears in over a decade, and it felt like yesterday.
Yeah, I agree, man. I just felt like it was so good to see him again and to feel that instant connection again, you know, but I just love some of the things that he taught about. You know, he taught about distractions. He taught about angels. He taught about love, and man,
you know, and really quick about the parenting, he actually gives us practical strategies.
Yeah.
Right? He gives us practical, almost like conversation starters.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's walking the walk, right? He's not just talking about being a parent that's involved in the lives of kids. He is doing those things. And so it's really easy for him to speak from that place. But I took notes like, oh my goodness, that's a powerful strategy that'll bless my home. Right. Yeah. That will really, really help me. And I think that I love the path that his life takes. I love that journey that he takes us on through what faith means to him. Why he gets into being a doctor is incredibly personal for him. And he's doing amazing things with the people of Arkansas. Redding, California misses the Spears family a ton, right? When we lost them, it was a blow to a lot of good friends of theirs. But he's there doing that, and I'm super proud of the life that he's built.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to catch up with friends and see the success that they're having, not just in a professional way, but just in life, you know, in sort of navigating the hardships of life. And that's what, at the end of the day, right? That's what the show is about, is that we can sit down with people and they can share with us their strategies about how they get through the hard things. And like you, I took a lot of notes, and I really felt like there was some powerful things said tonight that I want to implement tomorrow. Like, I need them to be a part of who I am. And I'm excited about that. I'm really excited about that.
I mean, the guy watches It's a Wonderful Life sometimes in the middle of the year, and every time he watches it, he tears up, right? He's moved by that powerful archetype of George Bailey, right? And he's taken those principles to heart, deep into his heart, and that's what he's living. That's what he's doing, and that's why he's living that life. Cream rises to the top, and Greg Spears is as good as they get, right?
Yeah, and I think that this is the second guest that has taught us about the powerful word y'all. So I think that's exciting too. We need to make sure that we give him credit for that. I think he and Alan Michael made sure they used that for us. But yeah, I just hope that if no one listened to this podcast at all,
screw them. Who cares, right?
yeah,
I learned from Greg
a
Spears.
ton tonight.
Complacency is the greatest demon.
Yeah, I love it, man. So I learned a ton tonight, and I hope that those that tune in are gonna take some notes. Let me ask you this question, Mike, before we wrap it up. What's the one thing that you hope people grab tonight? If they could grab one thing, what would that be?
The danger of noise. The noise of our lives is dangerous, and I think that it's dangerous because we need to be listening. We need to be listening to our own heart and our own soul. We need to be listening to the people in our lives, and the world is noisy because the world doesn't want us listening.
Yeah. So on that note, let's listen to this episode, everybody, and let's take notes. Let's figure out that one thing that stands out to you that you're going to put into action in your life to be better and to be different. It's going to be different for everybody, right? I love the idea of the noise and the love and the complacency, but take notes. Let us know how you enjoyed this episode. Talk to us about what stood out to you on our social media. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can drop us an email. But
even better, even more important, Tyler, talk to your coworker at the water cooler.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone's dealing. And if this show helps other people deal, man, let people in on it, right? It's not a secret. Let people in and just say, hey, check it out. And maybe a 2-hour journey isn't for some people. And we get that. We understand that. It is for us. We are getting some great comments and some great stories through those social media platforms that our stories, that our guests, the lessons that our guests are teaching are doing some things in the lives of other people. And that's why we do it, man.
Absolutely. Give us a review on Apple Podcast. Take a listen wherever you get your good podcast content, and we're grateful for your ears on this program. Let's take notes. Let's be better. Till next time, Mike Freeman.
I might be a little fired up tonight.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot moving in me, man.
Well, I am fantastic, man. It has been a crazy week at work, but it's good. That's all good. It's all been crazy good. What about you, man? How's Zoom life in the educator world?
Oh, I can't even go there right now, man. You talk about crazy, right? You talk about things turned upside down. It's interesting because tonight, man, we're heading to Arkansas.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Alan Michael took us back to his roots in Mobile, Alabama. And tonight, Greg Spears is going to be joining us from Arkansas, a good friend of ours, a good friend of mine. You know Greg.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's got some Reading roots, and he uprooted and went out to Arkansas. So we're gonna check in with him. But with this COVID and this pandemic, it's interesting because medical and education are two industries that have just been hammered by this thing.
Yeah.
And we got school starting in a week, and we have districts that still don't quite know what it's going to look like. So that's unnerving, to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, my wife is an educator, and she has no idea what her school is going to look like. So she's unnerved. Yeah.
Well, I got a daughter who's on a road trip, man. I can't even believe I agreed to this, but she took three friends. She graduated, so it's like go see the world a little bit. She took 3 friends and hit the road and went out to southern Utah, and she's going to be gone 10 days.
I love it, dude. Look.
Do you? Because like when she left, I was like, wait a minute, like what did we sign up for? 10 days?
Look, man, I'm a believer that the road trip is a rite of passage, and it's got to happen.
Actually, I believe that as well. That when she turned 18, it was like, you know what? If I was 18, I would want straight up cold hard cash for a road trip experience with my friends. So we gave her the cash. And, you know, my amount of cash that I gave her is probably going to get her to Corning, maybe.
Hey, you know, $40 and a wish, you know, that'll get you somewhere. But you know, it's funny. It's like when at one point in time, I think I was maybe a senior, maybe a junior in high school. And I wanted to road trip. I had this idea that I was going to road trip down the state of California, down Highway 1. And I was going to skate at every skate park and just end up in Los Angeles. And I remember telling my mom this plan, talking to my mom about it. It's like me and like 3 or 4 buddies. And her words to me were, after probably some debate, I'm sure, was, "That's fine, but if you get into trouble, don't call me." And we broke down in the middle of Oakland. That's how far we made it. We were in Oakland, in not a very great neighborhood. And I remember my buddy looking at me saying, "Hey man, what are we going to do?" And I just said, "Well, I'll tell you what we're not going to do, right? We're not going to call my mom, because that was clearly ruled out before this road trip got underway." And, you know, that the rest of the misadventures are for another show.
Yeah.
But,
So so my road trip adventure, I had a dream road trip, never happened, but didn't come to fruition. As a Cubs fan, I wanted to get out to Chicago, and that thing never happened, man. That's still on my bucket list. That's not right.
no, we got to do that. We got to do that.
You got a bucket list? That's a good, maybe we'll pick that up later. So I'm at a Def Leppard concert.
Oh man, one-armed drummer. I love it.
The one-handed, one-armed drummer. So I have literally, Tyler, I got $8 in my pocket.
Oh yeah.
We leave the Def Leppard concert, highlight of my life, right? Great concert, great show. We're in Sac.
Okay.
And we pull out a map, and we don't want to go north, right? We don't want to go home. It's like, I got $8, I'll throw it in, right? But that's what I got. So I think my friends, I think that's a mooch, right?
Yeah, I mean, unless
you're going on board for a trip and you're bringing $8 to the party. That's a mooch.
That's pretty moochy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I throw $8 in, and we end up in Santa Cruz. Same thing. Car breaks down, right?
Yeah.
Car breaks down, and we don't really care because there's cute girls and it's the boardwalk. So, you know, and we're sleeping in hotel parking lots anyways. We're not camping anywhere. Which we're hitting the ice machine.
Just FYI, I slept in a U-Haul in Santa Cruz. So yeah. Okay. Keep going though.
So I don't know if I would call it the Mike Freeman back then wouldn't have referred to this as a tender mercy, but man, there was this Jeep. Now, this might be a past transgression. But there was this open, top off Jeep, and there was a round table leftover pizza box in the back seat.
Okay.
I might have
took liberties.
I was homeless, right?
Absolutely.
I was homeless. So I grabbed me some pizza and we ate that night. But we were excited because coming out of the boardwalk, we ran into a guy named Red.
Yeah.
And it's a great name. Great name. Yeah. A guy named Red was going to, he just happened to have mechanical skills, and he was going to meet us in the morning and fix our car. So we were super excited about that. The problem is he needed $100.
Yeah, don't we all?
And we didn't have $100.
Yeah.
Because my $8 was done, right?
Yeah.
Leaving Sacramento. So thank you, Western Union. Western Union. You ever use Western Union?
Never.
I don't know if Western Union's still doing their thing, but man, they were a godsend that day because one of the parents of the group, to get us home, right? We're stranded. Car broke down. So they, Western Unioned $150. We met Red, $100 that morning. He fixed the car, $50 at IHOP, had breakfast, took it home.
Okay.
Road trip, Santa Cruz.
I love that. So let me just jump in there because this is amazing. I think Santa Cruz is like a hub for these sort of events because I told you we broke down in Oakland. We rented a U-Haul.
Broke down in Oakland sounds like a Quentin Tarantino film. Just to let you know.
Let me tell you, there was elements of this story that were a Tarantino film. we rent a U-Haul And how we pulled that off, I'm not sure. We drive that to Santa Cruz because we're going to see Green Day at some little club in Santa Cruz. We drive to Santa Cruz. We have no place to stay. This has not been thought out in any way, shape, or form. We spend the night in the U-Haul. The next morning, we're wandering the streets like a bunch of homeless guys. We run into some girls that we knew. Weird.
What?
Yeah, they find out we're sleeping in a U-Haul. They invite us over to her grandparents' house to stay there.
Are these good girls? Because that sounds kind of ratchet.
Let's just.
I don't know if the kids say that anymore. Do the kids say that anymore? But that sounds a little.
It's sort of Paul Harvey-ish Rolodex kind of deal. But listen, so we go to her house. We stay the night there with her grandparents. The next day, he drives us back to Oakland, probably just to get rid of us, but pays for the car repairs. Road trip continues. Santa Cruz, man. Weird things happen in Santa Cruz. I don't know.
Greg Spears, welcome to the richest man in town, brother. How are you?
What's up, Greg?
Great. Thanks, gentlemen.
Hey, you are coming in on a topic, it's funny because Tyler and I text all day and we get deep and philosophical and we're expecting to get into this great conversation and somehow we land on road trips, like epic road trip stories. Do you have a road trip experience that A, is interesting and B, you can share, and I guess C, the statute of limitations is up and you won't be arrested?
A road trip doesn't come great to mind right now, but you're talking about Santa Cruz. My kids are fifth generations Californians who we have great grandparents that ended up right there in Santa Cruz. And my grandma, there used to be a swimming pool, a saltwater swimming pool there at the boardwalk in Santa Cruz. My grandma used to do diving shows. Right.
Like carnival freak shows?
No, like finesse.
Yeah, like Olympic style diving, right? Is what we're talking about? See, this is what I'm talking about. Santa Cruz has things that just roll around that you would think, in any other conversation, they just wouldn't exist. But Santa Cruz, they're there.
I think it's funny that the guy who moved from California out to Arkansas says he doesn't have a road trip story.
All right.
Like that U-Haul, bro. Did you take a U-Haul or did you move? Did you have movers?
Oh, we had movers. That was nice.
Oh, that's good because that U-Haul is going to give you 55 tops the whole way, right?
That would have been a bad move.
I would say this: anytime you're in a car with more than 2 children, that's a road trip story. I don't care if that's to the grocery store. Like that's a road trip story. You're just like, they fought. They cried. It was a nightmare.
We did 5,000 miles in an RV from Sacramento down to San Diego, across the nation, Amarillo by morning, then Arkansas, up through Missouri into Nauvoo, and then Mount Rushmore, Salt Lake, and back home again. 2 weeks, 5,000 miles. I drove the whole way.
Are you kidding?
And that is my dream trip.
Okay, hold on. I gotta stand up here. I gotta say I'm anti-RV.
Oh.
So
it's the poop, brethren. It's the idea of driving around in my own, carrying around my own waste and just hearing it thump around in the plastic container. Like that's just wrong.
I'm sure Tyler and I don't poop our pants, and so we don't know what you're talking about.
Amen.
You're above that by now. I know it's been over a decade since I've seen you guys. You haven't aged a bit, but I thought, is it too old? Is he already losing it?
Hey, how long has it been? How long you been in Arkansas?
I was just thinking it's been, let's see, we were 8 years, so 11 years. 11 years since we left Reading.
Okay, Tyler, we know this guy. Don't let him get all big head doctor. We know him when he was a wee resident, right? Yeah. So your kids went to preschool together at Miss Ricky's preschool. Shout out to the now defunct Miss Ricky's preschool. Yeah. But your kids were alum. My kids were alum. And where is Grant now?
Grant's in the Salem, Oregon mission.
How is this for serendipity?
That's right. Sydney, my daughter Sydney.
Oh, crazy.
And Grant are serving in the same mission. Grant left from Arkansas, Sydney from San Diego. but the roots tie back to the 6 degrees of separation to Reading are strong, man.
Okay, so that is not the only reason why Greg is on the show tonight.
No, not
but that
all.
is a really cool small world serendipity connection, right? The reason why I reached out, and this is interesting because Greg, Tyler and I both know you, but you're my guest. So if this is like the best episode ever, I get the credit, Tyler, right? Okay. Just for those keeping score at home.
And for the record, Greg, if you lay an egg, he gets the credit for that one.
So I reached out to Greg because we're friends on social media, and I think this show really is teaching me that I need to be a better friend, right? I need to reach out and actually engage with people that I haven't seen in a while, because a lot has been happening in the life of Greg Spears. And so this show is about that rich life, and nobody's living it richer than Greg Spears these days. I saw an experience, literally a sequence that went something like this. Greg's family goes to the airport and welcomes home a son from a mission. I'm hoping I get this sequence right. And then you guys have a kid. Is that true?
Yeah. Probably wasn't as fast as that.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't like the same car trip, right? But that is a sequence. That is a sequence that you don't hear very often, right?
So let's get some perspective on that. Greg, give us the ages of your children right now.
So the oldest that Mike's talking about, he's 21. So he's home from his mission over a year. And then the 18-year-old Grant, he's out on his mission. 16-year-old Hannah, she's in high school, of course, junior. And then 13-year-old William's going to be a freshman this year. And then there's Sophie, and she's 7 months old, and she reigns the house. She's got us all looped in.
So right. I am dying to. One of the things that I love about this podcast and the experience that it gives us, because Tyler, it is all about us.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Is the opportunity that we have to see kind of how people might have a plan, but then life goes off the script a little bit. Right. And I'm thinking that Sophie might be a little bit off the script.
I think so. So is there an understatement somewhere?
Yeah, a little bit.
Greg, before we veer off into that territory about all of those good details, let me ask you this. I mean, the Richest Men in Town podcast is really about just kind of how we can be better, right? And what we can do to live a better life and be more fulfilled and just become the best version of ourselves. And Mike and Mike said it earlier. I mean, this is a selfish venture. It's all about, I told Mike from the very beginning, let's do this because I want to make myself better. I'm not so much concerned about anyone else, right? It's all about me. I'm pretty good at that. So, but when Mike reaches out and says, hey, Greg, we want you to be on the Richest Men in Town because we want to learn something from you. What are your thoughts?
I'm in your shoes, I mean, if the times that I had in Reading, what I learned, and the people that I knew, I mean, the Golds and the Freemans, that's stellar time right there. And so I'm sitting here wanting to learn from y'all. That's a new word.
Yeah.
New word. I picked it up here in Arkansas. It's easy. I'm going with it. I'm sticking with it. California blooded, but it's stuck.
I love it. I want to adopt that, by the way.
Right. So easy. The Brian Regan joke about eating biscuits and gravy. There's no way you can say you all. You just say it together. You just don't have enough energy,
Hey, it's funny you mentioned the Reading days. I have a Greg Spears story, and I probably need to repent a little bit here, Greg Spears, because you were a resident while you were here in Reading, right?
Yep.
And I was playing some old man football. I don't even know if you remember this. It was early December. I know it was December 5th, a long time ago. We played on a Saturday morning, and I proceeded to tear my ACL. I limped home, acted like I wasn't hurt. It was the Saturday that I was supposed to get on the roof and put my Christmas lights up. I proceeded to get up on the roof, drag my leg around, put my lights up, and we had a Christmas dinner party that night. And I show up, and the guys come up to me. You're in the group. The guys come up to me and they say, "Hey, you got a brace on that leg?" I said, "No, that's how swollen it is." And I'm sitting in a couch, and I tell you this story, and you come over and you grab my leg and do a little shake, 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 and you say, "Yeah, man, you tore the ACL." And I was like, "Get out of here! What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, that's an ACL tear." And I badmouthed Greg Spears, at least in my mind, and said, "This guy doesn't know medicine. There's no way."
He's a crack, right?
And
I
boom.
still feel that way. Holy cow!
So it's like you had a homemade MRI machine or something. I don't know what that little witch doctor trick was, but you definitely diagnosed a torn ACL.
Okay.
So I apologize if I badmouth your medical abilities back in
I
the day.
forgive you if that helps, but never no feeling. Tyler, you asked a question. What do I think? Actually, that movie is one of my favorites. I have to watch it every Christmas, sometimes even, June or July. And that story, I can't watch that story without crying at the end every single time, and it's true. Since I've been pondering about this, I've just had time to reflect on, how we gotten here, what kind of life experiences and what does it mean to be wealthy? I mean, truly wealthy, the right kind of wealth. So
how have we gotten here? I love that question.
Yeah.
Right? It implies a journey.
Yeah.
Well, hey, before we get into that journey, I have a little accountability measure with Mr. Gould here.
Oh yeah, let's do this.
There's some homework that we've been assigning each other as a process of this podcast. And one of them was a 5-year life plan.
No, I'm just kidding. These are my notes. I haven't done my homework.
How's it going? I don't want to give you any like PTSD from back in the high school days, but how are you doing on that homework assignment?
I through those days, I learned very well how to handle public shaming. So I have not done my homework. It has been on my mind, but I haven't put pen to paper, and that will happen, Mike.
Okay, good. I haven't either.
It will
Full
be
disclosure.
The 5 years are up too. So just I'm going to make
Full
that
disclosure.
commitment.
I haven't either. But the idea, Greg, is that
I did it. I came prepared.
What's that?
I did it. I came prepared.
Beautiful.
Like, wow, that guy wasn't even assigned it, and he's showing up with it. But the idea is we can't build it, right? If we don't have a plan and be intentional about who we want to be 5 years out, 10 years out, we'll drift into something that nobody really wants to become.
And I think, Mike, that 5-year plan idea, was what came about when we were discussing some of the things that we've learned from other people on the podcast. And I think that, there's a list, it's like, I'm not surprised, but I'm always like, I guess I'm pleasantly surprised by the things people say that just turn a switch on in my mind. Like, I need to improve in this area, or I could be better there, or I never even considered some of those things. And so when discussing that, Mike was like, you know what, maybe we need to incorporate this into our lives and come up with a 5-year plan that kind of brings us in. But let me ask you that question, Greg. In your life, who has made an impact on you that's helped flip a switch or put you in a direction, or let me say this, changed your trajectory and put you on a better path?
Oh, I'd say first one that comes to mind, if it's two people, right? So one is a defining moment in life, but another one is just kind of a million defining moments. One would be my dad, and his little nudges along the way. Really little, just subtle nudges along the way that not a man of a lot of words, but powerful when the message comes over. And so that's those million nudges along the way. Another one was I'm about 2/3 of the way through my mission get a new mission president, President Walker. This guy is 38 years old when he starts his mission.
Wow.
His wife was literally nursing their baby while they were in the MTC. And so, but he just changes the whole perspective on missionary work. And we were walking through the hallway after his own mission conference, and he just stopped and put his finger in my chest, and he said, I need you to be the man I know is inside there right now. And it was, and it wasn't one of those where I was, I wasn't rogue, I wasn't getting in trouble. It was nothing like that. It was just one of those where he just knew what I needed right then. And that's where I went from here to here, right? Just elevated with regards to the minutia, the details in my life. And that was a huge trajectory switch for me.
Did you, when he does that and puts his finger in your chest, I mean, did you immediately recognize that, yeah, I can be more? Or was there some introspection and some self-reflection that led up to those changes? I mean, how does that, I mean, I can relate to that because I've had people call me out on things as well. And I'm curious your thoughts on that when that happened.
I think complacency is one of our greatest demons, one of our greatest weaknesses. And that's probably where I was at the time. It was shocking, right? Physically, I can probably still feel that finger in my chest, right? And so it kind of shocked me a bit. And I pondered it for a while, sitting 2 or 3 hours on a bus heading back out to my area, and the weeks that followed, and I just thinking why, what's going on, why me, what's he thinking, and then I realized I think I'd gotten good at what I was doing, but really wasn't improving, really wasn't moving forward much, right? So this idea of just kind of, we're good where we are, everything's good, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
So, okay, you're a long ways removed from that missionary. How do you do that now? How do you fight that complacency now? I'm sure there's aspects of your life where you feel competent, where you feel that same temptation or that tendency to maybe take the foot off the gas and coast a little. How do you do that to yourself now, right? Your mission president isn't around. How do you wake yourself up?
I'm going to probably say it's 25-75, right? Probably 25% of that is me, putting my shoe on the right foot and getting going, bootstraps and the whole deal of just grit. And the other 75% is probably from those around me, right? The people who are, who come in and out of my life, and then those people who are there all the time around me. And so, the notion that we can be alone or I can do this, it's me. I'm the one who can, I've got to be the one to succeed. Sure, there's a part of that's got to be me, but there's a large part that I'm influenced by the people around me. And sometimes it's out of necessity. Sometimes it's out of pleading from me. Sometimes it's God intervening, probably more often than anything, actually, God intervening. And so, again, those nudges come or they're smacked in your face. Unfortunately, I take a while. I take a while. I get a message, I get a nudge, I get a finger in the chest per se, and sometimes if it's easy, I move forward and just boogie on it. But a lot of times I go through this process of introspection, right? And then come up, maybe even write down a list of how I'm going to accomplish this or that. Write it in my journal, make a note on my phone, whatever it is, and then mull that over for a little bit, right? And then complacency sets in, and I kind of forget about it and live my life and go to work and do this and that, and and then maybe there's a little nudge to get back to that list again, and I mull it over again. And so this process that goes over and over and over until I take a step forward and then another step forward, and eventually get to where I can mark that as a success, a movement in the right direction.
Yeah, you know what? I think that that's a fascinating concept, because so many times the emphasis is on the journaling and the filling out the pages moving forward, but intentionally taking the time to look back on the notes that we've, to the promptings and to the things that have been given that are still out there, that are loose ends that we haven't really followed up on. So Greg, just hearing you talk, I just wanted to share this excerpt from this book, The Only Leaders Worth Following. It's by Tim Spiker. He says this, actually, he quotes the poet E.E. Cummings: "To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop fighting." And that's that battle, that complacency, that drive to keep that fire lit. And I love that 25-75, because I've even felt that same kind of ratio in my life, right? If I don't have the people that are pushing me and it's all on me, I'm dead. I'm done for, right?
Yeah. And I think that, when you read that quote, the E.E. Cummings quote, I think what comes to mind is, he talks about fighting the fight. And man, that's a hard fight to win if you're trying to do it alone, and I think that, Greg, you mentioned people in your life and influences. I think that's so important, right? That we surround ourselves with the right people that are motivated to be better themselves, and they want us to be with them in that journey. And we're lucky here in this podcast, the three of us, and that we have family members that are part of that team, right? I mean, I know our wives play a big part of that, right? My kids play a big part of that for me on a regular basis, reminding me. But man, if we're in the middle of a battle and it's just us trying to win the fight, that's a lonely place to be, and it's a place that brings us to where we can give up easy. Yeah. And I think that 25, like Mike said, the 25-75%, I love it, because we have to put in our work. But man, having 75% behind us that are willing to help is a big
one. And Greg, you're in an interesting spot now, because as you say this, you are also a nudger, right? You said that your dad, through a million little ways, right, maybe didn't say a lot, but boy, when he did, and now you're in that position.
Right.
And also your mission president, being of influence in your life, and now you are of influence in the lives of others, right? So do you feel that pressure? Have you had any experiences where you've, figuratively or literally turned and pointed to somebody and said, "Hey, I need you to be better"?
Yeah. There have been some moments like that, definitely. Sometimes it's my own kids, right?
Yeah.
And that can, that's sometimes that can be precarious between pushing too hard, knowing exactly how hard to push and but more often how to lead, right? How to guide. But there have been some times I because of my mission president, there are a couple of times with some youth, some young men especially, in our last forward, I was bishop there, and those one-on-one encounters where you can just see right now, you can see somebody making choices that where it's going to lead, and it's not looking good, and just getting kind of in their face and saying, it's time, it's time to start getting back on the right road.
Oh man, it's time. Hey, God wants you on the floor, right? It's time. I love that. I love that point of looking at behavior and asking the question, where will this lead? Looking at our own lives and reflecting on our own path, like, where will this lead? Nothing is ever static. And so many times our choices are, on a precipice, right? We are on an edge sometimes. And it's like, do you understand that if you continue on that trajectory, at this stage in the game, there's a lot at stake. Like we really need to be careful, because there are things in life that if taken too far, great shall be the fall thereof, right? Thinking of the house built on the sand.
Well, I think too, I think it's important, because those moments are powerful. I mean, when we reflect on our own moments where we've been called to the carpet, right? And we've got to, straighten up and get your head out of your rear end and do it the right way. I mean, those are moments that I won't forget from my parents or church leaders or even friends that have called me out on stuff, Those are things that stick with me. And I think when we're in those moments with someone else where we can provide that guidance, it's so powerful to be able to look back and say, listen, I get it, right? But here's the moment where someone put their finger in my chest and said, hey, you got to change. And now I'm looking you in the eyes, and I'm putting my finger in your chest, and I'm saying, I've been there and I know where you're headed, and let's get this thing righted before it goes completely off the rails.
But you better have some deposit in with that relationship, right?
Yes.
You can't just turn around and start poking people in the chest.
No.
And I think that's the value of being able to call on those experiences yourself, right? If you're standing on a podium pointing down at people saying, hey, you got to be better, that doesn't work, right? When we're in the trenches with those people and we can say, hey, I love you. I know where you're going. I know where you've been, and I've been down that road. And here we go. Here's how we're going to get there together.
Sounds like a White Snake song.
Well, you did talk about a Def Leppard concert earlier, right?
Going down the only road I've ever known.
That's right.
What you're saying, Tyler, it's just recently my wife, Robin, and me have discovered something with regards to how to approach somebody where you feel that they need help or guidance. Something bad happens in somebody's life, in somebody's day. We've got, with those that are close enough, we ask the question, do you want sympathy or solutions? Is the question.
You asked that out loud.
Yeah. Do you want sympathy or solutions? And we, the closest runs are primarily our kids and with each other. And because you may say something that you're having a cruddy day on something, you may say it out loud, and you don't want to be told how to fix it, right? You just want to be heard. You just want to rant. You just want to cry. You just want to punch something, and you want to be heard. That's it, right? I only want to be heard. I only want sympathy. Don't give me solutions, right? And what's great about that is that being so obvious of a question, it just opens it up to how to receive, And I think, like you were saying, I think Mike, you were saying about building that relationship. The more that those relationships increase, you can step in with a really blunt question like that and have a great line of communication.
Well, and I love that packaging. There's so much is in the packaging, right? Like you don't just say it, you frame it, right? So that it's not going to be taken. If a person's not in the right mind, don't give them solutions. Right? They're not ready for solutions. We have the conversation a lot of times where most of the time it's my wife to me, but it'll be like, would you like some feedback?
Right.
And if I'm not in the mood for feedback, then I'll be like, you know what? I'll take a rain check on the feedback until later. Right. And even when it does come, it's maybe one thing. Hey, maybe work on this one thing. It's all in the packaging.
Well, Greg, so let's talk for a second about the family and the kids and tell me about, let's talk about, Mike and I know Robin and sort of your guys' journey a little bit, but why don't you talk a little bit about how you got where you are and tell us about the kids and where you're at now in your life. How'd you guys end up in Redding? And now you're in Arkansas. We're in Arkansas or Alabama? Where are we at?
Arkansas. Arkansas. Northwest Arkansas, which is very different from Arkansas, trust me. All right. Redding was residency for us, right? Family practice residency.
Well, really, hold on, back up. how did you, Robin is a powerhouse, and so many times this pattern is we're talking to richest men in town, and it's really, the spouse of the man makes a difference. That's been the pattern so far anyways. Talk to me about how you met Robin. Better get it right, because she might listen to this.
Oh no, it's such a great story. Robin and I met at a time when we had done all of our dating that we needed to do to decipher what kind of person we wanted to marry. And this is mutual. You ask her the same, she'll answer the same way. Gone through and have made our either real lists or mental lists of what we want and don't want in a companion. So when we met, it was very quick how everything progressed toward our marriage and sealing. We were January 10th of 1997. I'm at BYU finishing up a class in the afternoon, Spanish class, and I meet my brother who was waiting for me, and then we were going to drive 30 minutes back to his place that evening. And he said, "Hey, I got you set up on a blind date," and it was Robin, who was sitting in who studied with my brother and some friends in organic chemistry. And Robin was also pre-med at the time. So anyway, we met there at BYU and went to a movie that night, foreign speaking, Spanish speaking, because she's also fluent in Spanish. And then I was going skiing the next day with a buddy, found out that her mom was on the ski team when her mom was at BYU, and there was a girls ski team. And so I thought, golden, you never invite a girl skiing unless they know how to ski. So I invited her along. So here's one of those defining moments for me. Literally, this was one of those hinge points, right, in life where there were probably our kids on the other side of the veil putting these words into my mouth. And I was pushing her to go skiing with me. She was refusing because she wanted to study and have a good semester and go to medical school. And I said these magic words: sometimes you've got to be spontaneous. And that was it. and in her mind, she's like, nobody tells me that I'm not spontaneous. And so so that was it. We went
sometimes you just got to be spontaneous.
That's it. And so the next time we went skiing up at Alta Ski Resort, it snowed. Guys, it snowed 48 inches in about 3 hours.
Oh my goodness.
And Little Cottonwood Canyon avalanched down, and they didn't clear the roads out in time. And so everyone stayed in the lodge overnight.
Bummer.
Oh,
so we found a little patch of bar room floor upstairs in Gold Miner's Daughter Lodge there, and the date turned into 36 hours instead of just a few hours. So
wow.
That was it. 8 months later, we're married.
Let me ask you this question, and if you've forgotten, we'll edit this out. But you said you both had dated enough that you've had this list, whether it's written or mental, of things that you were looking for. What about Robin met the criteria of that list for you? What was on that list, Greg?
It was everything. It was everything. But you've got to have physical attraction at first, and that was slam dunk from the beginning. But really, and then she's well grounded in her faith. She knows who she is. But really, what really sealed the deal for me was she was the first girl that made me laugh, instead of me being the one to do the laughing or pose the jokes. And so that sealed it for me.
I love it, man. Very cool.
Hey, do you is your oldest married?
No.
Okay. Have you had this conversation with him about what to look for?
Oh, since he was 2. All the kids. We're very open with our kids about all of it. So
no, that's good. That's good.
I like this conversation because, Greg, I've got a daughter coming home from a mission.
Yeah.
I'm scared to death.
Right?
Yeah. I'm excited for life, you know, but that's my little girl. Right. And I see the writing on the wall. I know what's coming next. I've tried to bury my head in the sand and it's not working,
Right.
But how your son is 21. He's marching down that path at some point, right? He's going to get there.
Yep.
What are those conversations like? What do you tell him in those one-on-one moments when you can have that fatherly advice about, hey, this is eternity, right? That we're talking about.
Thankfully, a lot of the conversations have been going on for years. And I was joking, not joking about this since he was 2 years old. We're pretty strong proponents about being pretty open about the hard topics to talk about with kids, right? Sex, and money, and that sort of thing. And so those conversations have been going on for years at gradated levels along the way. And so on certain of those topics, they'll get a little bit more in depth, deeper as the moments grow closer. But right now, gosh, we're talking money, we're talking about jobs, we're talking about education and timing on things logistically, saving money for whatever comes, and then reminding, right? Probably the biggest thing is you will marry the type of person you are. So what do you want to marry, right? So it makes it really easy. What kind of person do you want to marry? And so we sat down and talked about kind of that list of what do you like? And he has had his, top 3 or 4 that he shared with us, and then just turn that question right around and say, are you living that way? Is that the type of person you are, right? And what's great about that is that then he's got self-reflection on, am I that type of person? Do I want to, the type of person I want to marry? And so it's a win-win, I'd say.
I like that conversation a lot. I think that I'm a believer in right introspection and taking inventory of where we're at. And I think that having those conversations definitely puts him in a position to want to or to need to be introspective and taking some inventory on where he's at. It's interesting because I look at you and Robin and what you've done with your family, and I admire who you are and what you guys have done, and just the family unit itself, right? And what you've created. And I look at my own kids and I think, man, I want that kind of thing for them. I want that kind of thing for them. And it's been interesting for me as I anticipate my daughter coming home, this idea that it's totally out of my control, right? What you teach and what you've lived hopefully sinks in, and they can find the right person like you did with Robin. I think that for me, I'll be honest, I'm nervous about it. I'm hopeful, yeah, and I'm excited, but at the same time, I'm nervous.
But you've done that work too, Greg, jokingly, since 2 years old, but you've had those same conversations with Sydney. And I love what you were saying about, you marry the kind of person you are, because you can extend that even further. I came across that saying that, life is a mirror. Life doesn't give us what we want. It gives us who we are.
Right.
And it really does come down to what kind of person do you want to be with, and then be that person, because like will attract like.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, so really quick, I don't want to necessarily leave this topic, because you talked about, giving that fatherly advice. So Greg, at this point in your life, what's the best life advice you ever got?
Probably, so a couple of things, right? One of them would be going back to my dad a bit, and that is that, there's not a lot that you can't fix just with a good hard day's work, right? There's not a lot that you can't fix with just good hard work. It's probably one of the best pieces of advice, and that flows into grit, right? flows into that tenacity that's needed to just keep moving. So so that's probably one of the better ones.
Yeah, that's good. What would you say as a dad? I've got a couple of good friends who just had their first kid.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them as far as advice for being a dad?
So, here we are, we've been parents for 20 plus years, right? And Robin and I have had lots of time as we've gotten older to look back on our early years as parents. And you know what? When you start out as parents, you kind of suck. You really do. You really do. You have no idea what you're doing.
You're winging it, man. You're winging it.
So it's like, just be patient with yourself, stick to the basics, right? And the basics are, work hard, go to church, pay your tithing, pray, smile, laugh, and just the basics, just keep doing the basics. Primary answers, that type of thing is key, but just be patient with yourself, right? Because you're going to mess up, and that's, Ryan will be the first one, our oldest, he'll be the first one to tell you, yeah, we screwed up. We screwed up on things, when we were younger, and
no permanent damage, right?
No, thankfully not, right? Nothing that therapy can undo, right? Who is it that said? I think it was President Monson that said, right as the kids leave the house, you start realizing that you figured out how to parent, right?
Yeah.
All those years through. So just be patient.
So you mentioned your dad a little bit. What about your mom? What kind of influence did your mom have on you?
Huge. Mom unfortunately passed away when she was 45. She was pretty young. She had breast cancer, and it's been tough as an adult to not have a relationship with my mom as an adult, right? To only have a relationship with her from the perspective of a kid and then a teenager, right? And so I the kind of influence that she had, she took care of me, she babied me. She was the soft one when I needed it, as a kid. And she was a scriptorian that I have her old scriptures actually just right over there, and they are marked up and noted just crazy. And she taught my seminary class for 3 years, and just laid that groundwork, that foundation of faith that has carried me through, I'd say.
How do you honor her today?
I think that's the yellow side of me. So my parents had a perfect balance between them. My dad, more serious, and his joy would be from just getting that hard day's work. My mom, she brought the beauty around, right? She brought the party, she brought the laughter. And so I think every time I honor her by making it fun, right? I'm making it fun. I'm making it sound like my dad's a real jerk, or he's like got no personality. That's not true at all. Actually, he's changed quite a bit, softened up quite a bit over the years since actually she passed away and he remarried. And so as time's gone on, which is also a great experiment in life on how we change from the time when we're younger, as young parents, et cetera, and older parents. And so anyway, honoring my mom, I think I bring the yellow to fun.
So why medicine? Why do you do what you do?
I think medicine because before my dad was a contractor, he was a fireman paramedic down in LA. In the golden years, Emergency, the old TV show back in the 60s and 70s, that was based on my dad and the other firemen paramedics, literally, that like the producers would do ride-alongs with them.
That's awesome.
And then go and write stories. And so, all those great stories that he had. And then when mom passed away, it was it was more drive to be of help in the medical industry, I'd say.
So Greg, what's the process for you with your own children? I mean, you've talked about the influence of your dad. You've talked about the influence of your mom. I mean, what do you do? How do you work with your children in that influence? Is it we're going to sit down and have discussions on a regular basis? I mean, how do you interact with your kids to make sure that you're teaching them the things that you find important?
Example is the most powerful, of course. I intentionally try to make them see me praying, writing, reading scriptures. Do it out in the open so that they can see that hey, Dad does this too. And then leading out in the family, especially when we're doing church from home, it's leading out and being that figure in the home that will guide spiritually in addition to other ways. Probably one of the greatest lessons I've learned as I've gotten older is to listen more and talk less. Oh my gosh, did I just quote
Aaron Burr?
Aaron Burr, thank you. Talk more. Or you talk less. Talk more less, right? Thank you. I did. You're welcome. So that's, I mean, it's, as a parent, you just, gosh, especially teenagers, you gotta listen. You gotta listen because it's fuzz, right? It's the old joke is that a teenager, they hear you say, hey, hey, son or daughter, bzzz. Okay, did you hear that? Did you get all that? Bzzz,
Yeah.
And so they'll catch every other word or so, maybe other sentence, but listening, I think, is huge. So that, because then if you listen, if you take the time to just be there, seriously, even if they're on their phone or something like that, you just sit down next to them and just be present, not on your own phone, just being present, right? One of them comes home from a date, one of them comes home from a party, whatever like that. You're up, it's 11:30, whatever, they come in, just be there. And then they know, I'm going to go sit down with my dad, I'm going to sit down with my mom, I'm going to tell them about my experience, how it went. And they expect that now because that's the way we roll with it. And so just being present, nudging questions, right? Nudging questions. Hey, tell me about this, tell me about that. Knowing what's going on in their life, knowing their friends by name, asking about their friends because right now friends are more important than family when you're teen years,
Mm-hmm.
And it's different, right? It's different, especially with the spectrum that I have of ages of kids right now, from a 7-month-old and then teens and then an adult, 2 adults. And so every approach to every conversation is different. It has to be catered to them. So
Yeah.
How do
But
you listen though? How do you
ahead.
listen in such a noisy world? Right? You mentioned don't be on your phone. There's a lot coming at us. Tyler, we can pick this up. We were texting back and forth. I love, there's a stanza in a T.S. Eliot work called From the Rock. And this is what he says. The endless cycle of idea and action, endless invention, endless experiment brings knowledge of motion, but not of stillness, knowledge of speech, but not of silence, knowledge of words and ignorance of the word. All our knowledge brings us nearer to our ignorance. All our ignorance brings us nearer to death, but nearness to death no nearer to God. Where is the life we have lost in living? Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information? Right? I mean, there's a lot there, but like this world of tumultuous, chaotic noise. And when you say listen, it sounds really easy. Do you have any thoughts on how we can actually find silence, how we can actually find wisdom, how we can find this in this sea of craziness we're living in today? I'll put that out to Tyler too, right?
Yeah.
Interested in thoughts.
Yeah, to underscore what you're saying about the noise, I practice family medicine, so general medicine, and since COVID-19, I have been flooded with even my patients that didn't have anxiety before feeling the feelings of anxiety. And the common factor in all of it is watching the news. Common factor, watching the news, be it on TV or social media. It's the news, right? And so number one, you have to recognize what the noise is, right? What the noise is. And so, and that noise can be visual, auditory, it can be turmoil in your life, people with unresolved errors that they need to repent of, forgiveness that needs to be extended to somebody else. That's all noise, right? And that all adds to it. And so, number one, you got to recognize what that is before you can turn it off, or at least work toward turning it off. So the easy thing is literally turning off the TV, literally shutting the laptop, turning the phone off. That's the easy part. And then after that comes the deeper, heavier stuff. So,
Tyler, what are your thoughts on that? I'm curious.
I like what Greg talking about listening. I think how do we hear, with all the noise? I think that we have to listen. Greg talks about asking questions, and I'm a believer in that with my kids. How do we engage them in listening? Well, I listen. That's it. We got to sit down and say. I tell my kids all the time. I sit on the couch. I sit down next to them. I'm like, let's put the phone down, and then I get the eye roll, and then I start asking questions about the day, and
the crazy thing is,
right. It starts out as one word answers, right? And then as you continue that process of asking questions and just listening, then it becomes this conversation, and I think that's what I want from my kids is to know that there's a lot of power in just listening to people and having a connection with a conversation. My 16-year-old is probably the best selfie taker there ever was, right? She can take a selfie like nobody else. But what's the skill in that, right? When she can put the phone down and we can have a conversation about, first it starts out as school was fine. It was a Zoom meeting. And then it's the fears of the day, the stresses of life. And I think there's power in that for them to see the example of listening. Like Greg talks about listening. I think that's where they learn how to listen, and it's therapeutic, right? When we have someone that's willing to sit down and just shut up and not be formulating the next answer in their mind when they're talking to you, and just listen, right? And you don't have to have a great response or I'd love to pull out quotes. Mike knows that about me. I'll throw quotes out of people all day. But when I'm talking to my kids, I can't do that. I just want to sit and listen and hear it, And
because anytime if anytime they open their mouth to start actually talking, you come in as a fixer, you're done.
Yeah,
they won't open.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Dave Specht and Inspired Questions.
Yeah,
right?
I love that.
And making sure that we're asking the right questions and that they're open-ended and that, devices are shut down. I don't know if there's any Spears or Gould strategies for device management with teenagers, but that in and of itself could probably be a podcast episode, right? Or an entire podcast because, I will say this, I will go on the record and say that there is an intentional adversarial force that wants us to be noisy.
Yes.
It wants the world to be noisy so that we're not stuck with ourselves. Because Greg brought that up, right? That inner struggle, a lot of people drown out some of their inner struggle through noise. So they don't have to deal.
Distraction being a tool of the adversary, right?
But that noise makes it difficult to hear the most important things of the soul, right? That direction that, and I would even say this, we might be praying people, but are we listening people?
Oh, for sure.
Right? We get into that heavenly butler idea where we're really good at praying. We give thanks because we're grateful people. And then I ask for some things and then it's like, I hang up the phone.
Right.
That's the power of it, right?
Hey, you were talking about technology with kids. I've got a great anecdote that I love it. I love this. I see, as a family practice, all ages, right? Womb to tomb, see all ages in my practice. And teenagers, when they come in for a sports physical, whatever it is, they're nearly always with a parent. And I always get a smile out of this. I say, and they all have a phone, they all have a cell phone, they have the latest iPhone or whatever it is, right? And so I say,
better than their parents.
Better than their parents, right? Because they deserve it, right? I ask, hey, you got your cell phone? Yeah. I said, let's take a look at it. And they pull it out of their back pocket or whatever it is. And I say, so that's your cell phone? And they're like, yeah, that's my cell phone. I said, okay, so gosh, how much did that cost? Oh, well, my dad bought it. My mom bought it, whatever. Oh, okay. How much do you pay every month for that? Right? I don't. So who's paying? Oh, my mom. Oh, so it's not your phone. It's not your phone, is it? Right? So parents are smiling. They love it. They love it, right? And so I had a therapist actually tell me once, technology is a terrible gift. Never gift technology with regards to giving it to kids. So it should never be for a birthday. It should never be for Christmas.
Wow, that's great advice.
Because really it is a tool. This is a tool. It's a tool for you to be able to connect with your friends, with your teachers, with whatever it is, with us. This is a tool. This is not yours. It's not a gift. So cell phones get charged in an open place. No cell phones ever go into a bedroom or a bathroom. No cell phones or laptops or anything like that. All technology, anything internet connected, stays out in the open. 9 o'clock, turn the phones in, all of our passwords to get onto the phone. If you wanted to break into my family's passwords on any of our devices, it's the same one. We all have the same, because the kids need to be able to know that they can look on my phone because I'm going to look on their phone, right? And that I've got nothing to hide and they shouldn't either. So
yeah, we've always had the rule, and I've always told my kids, if I look on your phone, which I reserve the right to do whenever I want, and your internet history is deleted, the phone then becomes mine. That's that's just how it is. And
but I love the example of, and you can look at mine.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember having this discussion with someone one time, and they were kind of lamenting the fact that their son had gotten into some trouble, on the phone, found some things that maybe they didn't want him to find, right? And I was asking him about, where's his phone at night? Well, it's in his room. He has to use it for an alarm clock. I'm like, yeah, I'll go to Target with you. You can find one for $5. You put a couple double A's in that bad boy, and you're good to go, right?
Might even have a radio.
Yeah, but Greg, I live by those same rules in my house. Your phones are, if you're in your room, your door's open, right? Your phones are charged out at the one spot outside your room every night. They're not to be with you. I mean, there's too much temptation, right? And there's too much, you have access to everything under the sun. And it's scary.
Well, we've talked about it. Choice will kill us.
Yeah.
Right. We've talked about it. I mean, generation before, several generations back, they had limited choices. They had different challenges. There'll always be challenges in life. Our challenge is choice. Right? You can take a free university course and learn things. You can also go to the vilest of websites, right, on the same device. And I think that's the test.
But I think there's something to be said for what Greg's talking about too. You have these systems in place or these rules in place, and you're teaching that there's the lesson of personal responsibility. There's a lesson of moderation. There's
but as parents, right?
Of accountability. But as a youth, right, you're learning that, and that's because at some point, right, I've told my kids, I just was telling them the other day, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and decide that you're going to do this list of awful things, right? It becomes one step at a time down the wrong direction, and before you know it, you're wondering, how did I get here? Like, how did I even end up in this spot? And that's that idea of choice, Mike, right? We have to be self-aware and know where we're at. And I don't know, that's a lifelong thing that we're teaching as parents, I would imagine, but we're trying to learn as adults as well.
Yeah, I think and Greg, you were probably in the ward when this happened. This was a long time ago. I have a good friend named Jim Crummett, and Jim Crumit's a dentist, and he's a rancher, and he taught me something about cattle that he wasn't talking about cattle, that I've never forgotten, right? As parents with our kids and as leaders with youth, we need to make the right thing easy and the wrong thing next to impossible. That's how he manages his cattle. But that happens to work with kids, right? If we have some guardrails up, if we have some things to help them do the right thing and make the wrong thing very difficult to do, that is how we protect those that we have stewardship over.
Setting up for success.
Right? Yeah, right.
So Greg, you kind of talked about, we've talked about different things that we're hoping for our kids and ways that we can kind of keep them, put up some guardrails. But what's something that you've learned the hard way?
How much more time do we have?
All night, my friend.
What is any one thing? Well, I think it goes back to that almost complacency, that apathy, maybe, the in between. There is no in between with regards to those things that mean a lot, right? Those things that are of great value. There's no, you're never not moving forward or backwards, right? You're always moving in a direction. And so if there's a time in your life where you find that things aren't going very well, then you've got to stop and ask yourself, okay, what choices am I making right now? What direction am I pointed right now? Because it's kind of like I've been doing a lot of mountain biking here. It's one of the best places in the country to mountain bike, by the way.
Well, hey, Redding, California might be right there with you.
Redding is good, but the National Mountain Biking Association moved to Northwest Arkansas, so that should tell you something. Anyway,
all right, I'll give it to you.
With mountain biking, you gotta lead a turn with your head. You gotta look where you're going to really have it be a fast, successful turn when it's a tight turn. So it's the same thing, right? You gotta know where you're looking, and so and point in that direction. So something hard. I would say that. Thinking that you can just be still and not be moving in a direction and think that it's still moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I always think about, when you were talking about that, I always think about the wars in Alma, right? It's like you're either gaining ground or you're losing ground, right? How are you gaining ground? It's all about action and fortifying and doing something, right?
Yeah.
What are you afraid of, Greg?
I'm afraid of ending pointed in the right direction, right? Ending this life or accumulating too much wrong direction time, right? And we all have weaknesses and demons that we work on, and I'm afraid of not accomplishing getting out in front of them in time before it's over, right? In this lifetime, in mortality. So that helps me allocate my resources, if you will, on where to put my energy.
What does that process look like to keep in front of that?
Recognition and realizing that it's impossible to do it on your own. It goes back to that again. Mm-hmm. There are people that are intended for you, for me, at certain times in our lives. We know that angels speak by the power of the Holy Ghost, and those angels are on both sides of the veil. There are definitely angels that are, you guys sitting here right now, the three of us sitting and talking, I count you guys as angels in a time in my life where, hey, I can be better. A chance for introspection and moving forward. And then there are those angels on the other side. My mom, my kids, none of my kids have met her. She passed away when I was 19. I was on my mission at the time. And so years before the oldest was born. And so they only know her as Angel Grandma. And she's been here at various times, more so than others. And not just her. I know that there are people who have gone on that are interested in my life, and help guide me along the way. However it is that works, I have no idea. I have some, fun ideas of how that works, but we have no concrete, idea exactly how that works, but it's intriguing and it's real. And
it's incredibly reassuring, Greg. Just, I didn't mean to cut you off, but as you say that, my eyes water and I want to smile ear to ear to think that loved ones are still interested and involved in some way, shape, or form, given permission to be involved, right? I'm assuming that there's an order there, like there's an order here. But I would back that statement up with my own personal experiences, right? And I can't explain them, but I can feel them, and I can feel yours as you're talking about it. And I think that we don't talk about that enough. So I want to highlight that, right?
And I love that thought of there are people in our lives that are intended for us, right? They're supposed to be there. And I think it was Spencer W. Kimball that talks about, right, prayers being answered through the actions of others. And I love that principle. I think it's important. I mean, to me, this is sort of the maybe it was the intended benefit, but it's, of this podcast is to sit and I hear what you're saying. And immediately I had the thought, I need to be more aware of the people around me and what I'm supposed to learn from those people.
I don't really care your background. When you are at a funeral for a loved one, you have to be thinking there's more to grandma than this, right? There's more to this loved one than this. This cannot be the end, right? Yes, there's a body in the box, and the box goes in the ground. But there is more to the relationship, to the love, to the things that they taught, to the things that they stood up for, right? I'm curious, Greg, because no one's born with faith, right? Faith is a taught thing. Faith is a journey thing. I feel your faith all the way from Arkansas, brother. When did faith become a source of power for you? Can you let us in a little bit on that journey? Like, where was it not just going to church anymore? Or where was it not just, it's my turn to say family prayer? Where did it start to hit hard in your life?
I'm 15 years old and I'm in Alaska. I have an uncle that lives up there. He's got this 900 acres in the middle of Alaska. And it's a teenage boy's dream. I was a farmhand the summers of my 15, 16 to 17 years old. And so I'm up there at 15 years old, and it's my older brother and Jason and I, and my uncle and aunt are not members of our faith. And the branch where the church is in this tiny town is very small. And we're up there for 8 weeks working as ranch hands. And that was the choice that my brother and I had, to go to church or not go to church, right? Mom and dad aren't around. We've spent scout camps and things like that away from home up until that point. But really that amount of time away from home, neither of us had done it. And so that was one of those moments where the nice thing is that we just did it. We knew that we wanted to be around other kids that are like us, that kind of speak our same language and have our same beliefs. And so we sought them out. But so at the time, you're not thinking about this being a pivotal moment or a deciding factor in my faith. But looking back on that retrospectively, I definitely say that's one of those where, hey, this is a time when I had the choice and I took it. I went with it.
What seek ye, right? I love that, man.
I have a situation. I'm just going to let people in. I won't share details, but I have a high school friend who's going through a rough patch. To quote Hamilton, going through the unimaginable. 12-year-old daughter passed away in a swimming hole a couple of days ago. They're not members of my church. I haven't talked to this person since high school. What would you say? Tyler as well, right? What would you say to that person? Right? A 12-year-old daughter. And I know my natural man, I'm trying to put myself in that person's shoes. I know the natural man response to that would be to question everything, right? To be angry and maybe even curse God. What would you say as a person of faith that's going through something like that?
I would tell you the worst thing for you to do is say, I know what you're going through, or anything like that.
Because there's no way.
No. And sometimes to say, God loves you, it's true, you know what? And that person may or may not want to hear that right now. That person might exactly be mad at God right now. But what they can't be mad at is when you say, I love you.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all they need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That goes to that. I appreciate that, Greg, because I will say my experience, and Tyler can back this up. I'm getting emotional just talking about this. There are people that listen to this podcast that are going through hard things. And it's important that they hear what you just said, right? Because really it does come down to that. It comes down to loving one another, right? Being kind to one another. I was texting Tyler earlier today. I'm a big Friday Night Lights fan, right? Going way back, but I'm sure it's streaming somewhere.
Watch it on Netflix, man. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think my wife had a crush on Riggins. But the coach, right? Coach at game time in the huddle, he'd always say, clear eyes, full heart, can't lose. And I think today, in the world that we're in right now, I can't think of anything better than clear eyes, full heart, can't lose, right? If we have the clarity to see things as they truly are, as they were, as they are, and as they are to come, and just a heart full of love for the person who come across on the path, right? That's how we're going to get through this thing that we're in right now. The next thing, that's how we're going to address it, right? I'm a big fan of the Tim Ferriss podcast. Tim Ferriss always asks one of his guests that question, right? If you had a bulletin board for the whole world to see, what would you put on it? Right now, that's what I would put on it.
I think there's a lot of things that can change. And I believe this. You can change almost any situation if you're sincere and you're able to tell someone that you love them, and that's it. And there doesn't have to be an answer, right? We want an answer. We're looking for the answer. But I think the answer comes when you feel the love, right? When you feel someone's love. I mean, I'm telling you, the times where I felt the ability and be empowered to change is when someone's looked at me and said, hey, I love you, right? Yeah. That's it, man. That's the list, right? That's the list. That's the list.
This episode's brought to you by Kleenex, brother, because I'm
Yeah. Well, I just love what you said, Greg. I think that's spot on, man. I was going to ask you, everyone's dealing with something and how do you deal? But I'm thinking, Greg, you've already covered that, man. And I feel like for me, again, I'm going to go back to this, man. There's reminders in this conversation of things that I want to do to be different. And I think part of that is just being quicker to tell people that I love them. I think that we live in a world where we try to guard our feelings all the time, right? We don't want to let people in too much because that's where the pain that's where someone can really stab you, you know? But I think if we open up and we're willing to say to someone, hey, you know, I know you're going through it, and all I can tell you is that I love you.
Well, and hey, I would even extend it. Greg's taught us it's not just telling somebody you love them, it's telling them what they need to be told.
Yeah.
Right. The courage to reach out to a wayward kid, right? The courage to reach out to a family member, right? There's so many times where it's like, they've probably, I don't want to, I want to maintain the relationship. I don't want them to think I'm judging them. By golly, if you love them, right? Yeah. Say something, or you don't love that person. Right. That's a bold take.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's been times when I've bitten my tongue, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
No, I love that person, right? I want that person to be where I want to be in the end of this.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I intervene? Right.
It's funny. I just had this experience last night. I was talking to someone on the phone. They were telling me some things, and I was listening, and I got off the phone, and I was telling my wife, I said, man, I really should have said this, and she said, yeah, you better call him back. And so I did. Called him back and had that conversation.
That's a loving nudge.
Right. Miss Rick. Yeah, it's called figure it out, knucklehead, right? Do something right. But hey, Greg, what gives you hope these days?
Wait, I gotta say, you were just talking about. There's a whole Seinfeld episode on. I should have said that. Remember?
Well, I'm glad that you appreciate Seinfeld, because I feel like I'm in this weird spot in life where I quote Seinfeld all the time, and the people I work with are looking at me like, "What are you talking about, dude?"
They've missed out on an entire decade of humor. Oh my god!
Absolutely.
Hey, I wanted to, before we go on, I wanted to add one other thing. Another way of expressing love is another phrase that shows empathy or sympathy, and it's something that I'm in a unique situation with work where, because I'm not a surgeon or an orthopedic surgeon or a dermatologist, I'm not a specialist, I end up dealing with a wide variety of issues, and a lot of times it's just life that is happening with my patients. And it might be a death of a family, a child that was incarcerated, a diagnosis of a cancer, something like that. And when I can tell that someone's in turmoil and they're not ready to let down their guard just yet, a simple phrase just breaks down barriers, and that is, "I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm sorry you're going through that. That's got to be hard." And just verbalizing that, yeah, what you're going through. I didn't say that I know what you're going through. I just say that's got to be hard what you're going through.
But you're validating.
Validation.
Right? What they're, yeah, and I think that, that's powerful.
And that's love. It's love. It's validating that. So.
Yeah, I agree.
What gives me hope? I'd say probably what gives me hope is that it could be worse. Is that whatever it is you're going through right now, if you don't feel like you can see beyond the horizon, it could be worse, and it could be way worse. And I get it time and time again, day after day with patients, and I have that unique position to be able to see what happens if you choose X, Y, or Z, and here's the result of what's going to happen in your life, and the turmoil and pain that comes from choosing things that aren't good for us. And I come home and kids say, or Robin says, "Hey, how was your day?" And I just say, "You know what? It was good. It was good. I had a good day." And because sometimes processing the craziness that I saw that day as a result of our choices, it's not good to repeat it. a lot of times, you know what I mean? And so whatever it is that you're going through, it could be worse.
How does seeing the impact of other people's choices on their lives influence the choices you're making?
It influenced, well, the things that I want to work on and change, that influences me very well. And the things that I'm still kicking against the pricks on, it doesn't influence me at all. I'm not ready yet.
I'm gonna take a risk here. We met, chatted a little bit before the show just to kind of give you an idea of what to expect and maybe run through some of the questions. But I have not asked this question of any guest before, and I'm curious to hear what Greg Spears' thoughts is. So I'm a huge basketball fan. I heard the story that Kyrie Irving, when he was on the Cavs and they lost in the finals to the Warriors in Oakland, confetti rained from the ceiling, and he reached down and picked up a piece of confetti to remember the feeling of losing, right? And he actually comes out with a shoe the next year, calls it confetti. Great story. But he carries that and puts that piece of confetti on the bulletin board in the locker room, right? I'm thinking of Jimmy V, Coach Valvano, carried around. He was a 3x5 note card guy. And his wife would always find these 3x5 note cards in his suit jacket, right? And one was, I want to play in the Big East championship game, prime time, Madison Square Garden. And he made it happen. After he passed away of cancer, his wife went through his things, and in one of the jackets, he had a 3x5 card that said, "Beat cancer." Right? I think of him carrying that card, and I think of Kyrie Irving carrying that piece of confetti. And I guess the question for you, Greg, is what do you carry? What are you carrying, either figuratively or literally in your wallet or on your person, to remind you of either who you are or what you want to be? What are you carrying?
I probably, more than anything, I carry the memory of my mom. It was very quick. So the type of cancer she had, you had a 5% chance of survival. So it was a pretty close death sentence from the very beginning. She went through all the available treatments at the time, and then my parents spent all the rest of their money and the money that I had saved up for my mission on alternative treatments to try to beat it. All right, you're talking about cancer. Just so happens that's the story, and it was the value of life, of her wanting to see her grandbabies, that I witnessed firsthand. I delayed a little bit on my mission just to be able to hang around a little bit longer to help out at home, as she was getting sicker, and so I witnessed a lot of that firsthand. Just her joie de vivre, right? Just the love of life, and the value of every day. And so that, we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. There are days when you just get so busy in what you do that you just get to your list and start checking off a list of all the things you need to do in your day. But that's probably the main thing that brings me back and centers me, is that, you know what? It's mortality. We believe in an eternal life, but this is the only mortality that we're going to have. This is the only day today in this time that I'm going to have to live this mortality. And that's a good anchor. That's a good anchor for me.
Tyler, you carrying anything?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just baggage that's bringing it down. But no, you know what? It's funny. There was a few years back, Ricky's has an uncle that passed away from cancer, And he was an amazing guy. I mean, just love of life, love of people, the center of all things going on, and just a spiritual giant. I mean, I learned so much from just watching him interact with people. I mean, someone who gave love so quick, he was a powerful example of that. But I attended his funeral, and I remember standing out in front of the church afterward and picking up a handful of rocks from the church, and I have them in my suit coat pocket to this day. Just remind me that, hey, you could do better. If Craig was here, he'd do things a little different, right? And honestly, when I served as bishop, I held on to those rocks many times in my hands, just to have that memory. So,
yeah, I think it's fascinating. I know a guy who recently celebrated, I think, 25 years marriage. And on Facebook, he had a couple of shoe tags from Reebok. I don't know if Reebok is still a thing. Is Reebok a thing? But he posted on Facebook this image of two tags from a pair of shoes. And he proceeded to tell the story of how he met his wife. He met his wife at Mervyn's. I know Mervyn's isn't a thing.
That's true.
Wow. Mervyn's, that's going way back, man.
He met his wife actually at an activity and didn't really have the courage to strike up a conversation. Just like, hey, how's it going? That was it. Well, later on, life gives him an opportunity because he's in the shoe department at Mervyn's. And she happens to work at the shoe department. And cool story. He, Mitch Barr, this is for you. Shout out. He buys two pairs of shoes, and he goes up and does the transaction. And she says, she circles something on the receipt and writes her number and folds it up and puts it in the bag. And she's like, yeah, I went ahead and put my number on the receipt. And so he's like, this is going to be fantastic, right? He goes to the car. He opens up the bag thinking she left a phone number. It was her employee number in case there's like a return or something, right? So he proceeds to use that employee number to find out more about her. This is way before Facebook and stalking and all that, right?
This is old school stalking. I like it, man.
Yeah. This is creepier. He ends up marrying this girl, and he carries those tags from those two pairs of shoes as the ultimate lucky charm in every performance. Everything he's ever done big in his life, that's been in the suit pocket.
That's awesome.
Like, I love that, right? I love that. I have in my wallet, Kelly a long time ago wrote, maybe it was like 15-year anniversary or something, 15 things that she loved about me. And I carry on little slips of paper, right? And so when I have to take out my ID and hand it to somebody, little slips of why she loves me falls out of my wall all over the place, right?
There's a Seinfeld reference there too, right? That's right. Well, I don't know what I liked better. Just hearing the word Mervyn's again brought a smile to my face. So I love that.
Hey, is Arkansas teaching you anything out there? You talk about people in your life for a reason. I know you're a praying family, and I know that was an answer to a prayer as far as destination and where to take your family. What is Arkansas and the good people of Arkansas teaching you out there?
Well, I already gave you the y'all.
The y'all.
When we moved here from California, it took me about 9 months to a year to just slow down from driving, to not tailgate, to not trying to rush through the yellow light, etc. It just literally, it was just helping me slow down. And the people, Northwest Arkansas is really unique because it's definitely the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing cities actually in America, and it's home of Walmart, which, trust me, before when you think Walmart, you think never go into Walmart after dark, at any parking lot, right? But when you're at the home of Walmart, it's kind of different. It's a lot different. It's a very nice place, and so you got a mixture of that good Southern love, right? Southern hospitality, slowing down, thinking through things without being too animated about it, I guess, and so just kind of slow it down and realize that it's not, you don't have to rush. You don't have to rush too much as much as you tend to in a lot of other parts of the world. So
yeah, I picture you and Sister Spears in a screened-in porch and some rocking chairs, sipping on some lemonade. Dogs under the.
You have a camera? I knew it.
Dogs are under the porch because it's August.
That is part of our research, Greg. We send a crew out. But hey, Greg, the show is the richest men in town, and we brought you on for a reason. I mean, we respect you, we love you, and
I brought you on.
Mike did, and for the record, you didn't lay an egg, so I'll give Mike a little credit for this. But we love you, man, and it's I really mean this. Like tonight, I've thought about some things that I'm going to do differently, right? Because of our conversation, and I will forever be grateful for that. But what does it mean to you to be the richest man in town?
Oh, it's family. I mean, it really is, right? Family is the primary unit of heaven, and if we want to live that way eternally, then we've got to practice what it's like to enjoy your family, work hard together. And so there's like the end of that movie, right? And you're tearing up because everyone's singing Old Lang Syne and everyone's happy in the moment. And what is it? Right? It's your family, it's your friends, and that's to be rich. Taking time to reach out to others, love others, do things for others, being part of a community that way is what brings wealth to life, hands down. But it's, I heard, I think in a movie or something recently that when it's all said and done, you only really need a couple of really good close friends. People you don't have to be the one that packs the house at the funeral. That at the end of your life, that you just have a good couple of good friends that are there for you at the end, and as part of that also your family, of course, and that I think is where the wealth is found.
Greg, I came in and the saw was pretty dull, right? It's been a grind the last couple of days, just with things happening and responding to things, and I feel like I've distilled this down, right? The time hanging out with you has distilled down to what I needed to be reminded of tonight, what it really is about. And I've always valued you and your family, and just know that the Freemans are a praying family. And when we pray for friends that are far away, that includes the Spears, that includes the Goulds, and we pray that you'll feel close to God. And I know that things come up, and I know that life deals you, babies that that no one was planning, right? And I think that Tyler and I are working hard on a 5-year plan, and God's just going to laugh at that, right? Because he is in control of things. But I know that I'm a better man because I knew you, and I'm a better man because of the time that we spent here tonight, like Tyler was saying. I'm going to leave this conversation with some Greg Spearisms bouncing around in my head, and I'm going to act on those things. And I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your influence. I can feel it from across the country, man. So thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you to your wife as well for loaning us to you. I know there's a 2-hour difference, and you're probably missing some supper. Supper?
Hey, you gotta eat supper, y'all.
Ring the bell. It's supper time.
This is gravy. You're probably cold by now. Dang it.
She's not chewing tobacco, right?
Not yet. We've only been here 3 years. So.
That's well, hey man, we appreciate you. It's been a blast, and it's like I feel like we've the time hasn't been as long as it has, since we've last seen you, and it's great to know that that we can still have those connections, and it's been a great time tonight.
Ditto. It's been a lot of fun. Maybe a reunion in San Diego. That sounds like a plan.
Let's go. Get the RV.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
All right, man.
My friend. Have a good night. Tell Robin we said hi.
Will do. Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Bye.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.